Welcome to the Stephen Shills radio show. I've got David Lewis back on. Happy New Year to you, David.
Happy New Year to you, Steve. Great to be back.
It's good to have you back on the show, David. What are your goals for 2021?
At this point, let's just get through it and see what happens.
Music-wise, what are you working on for yourself?
A couple of projects. Can't talk about a couple of them at the moment because they're still in early development stages, but I'm very excited about them. Mm-hmm. Also doing a solo album of acoustic instrumentals.
Nice. And are you going to record the solo album of acoustic instrumentals and put it on Spotify, or what's your plans with it?
That's the plan. Just a little album, just to get some of this stuff out. It's been too long since I've done anything like that, so I, get it out of the way and done. There's probably a book in the pipeline too. Mm-hmm. But again, we're still in the relatively early stages of that. And
no, that's really good.
Yeah, I'll leave that there.
And how's your Christmas and New Year's Eve?
Quiet. I think that's going to be the answer you get from everybody. Quiet.
You didn't play any Beatles on the vinyl?
Well, actually, I don't have vinyl, so no.
Or the cassette tape? Did you bring back memories?
I couldn't find my biro, so I couldn't play any cassettes.
Oh yeah. Well, hey, you remember those spin telephones that they used to have in the old days?
Oh, very much, yes. I'm very old. So... No. Oh, no, God. I don't even have a landline.
You remember the first mobile phones? They were like a block or something, weren't they? Like a satellite thingy on them?
Well, the first ones you could only get in cars.
Cars?
Yeah. And then later... and I won't put a year in because one, that'll tell everyone how old I am. Mm. And two, I can't quite remember the year. Yeah, you had the big ones. Mm. And I remember there was an article in the Sydney Morning Herald where the writer said, carrying a mobile phone makes you look like a tradie. And okay, does it? What's wrong with that? Firstly. Two, does it? And of course now, I know like maybe 3 people who don't have a mobile phone and they're all over the age of 80. So I think that says, actually, don't make that 2 people. One of them does have a mobile phone.
Yeah.
Well, so what do you...
Yeah. I'm having a lot of problems with Telstra, David.
Still?
Yeah. You want to know a funny story? The technician came to the house and he ran into spider webs and he complained, you got too many spider webs, because I had to change the modem because of storm damage.
Oh,
so the technician gets out his phone and he's playing on his phone. They don't do much.
Go on.
Yeah.
He gets out his phone.
And he's just, now your internet's connected, and they don't seem to do a proper job.
In the dim dark ages, I worked in IT. I'm talking a very long time ago. Like, we used to have to top up the machines with kerosene every day to make sure we could get the pilot light going so they'd work. And sometimes the technician doesn't look like they're doing a lot, but you've either realized you can't do any more, or there's a lot going on within the equipment and there's a lot of waiting around. So, and of course it's frustrating for the customer who doesn't understand what's going on. So I have a bit of sympathy for techs.
I'm not a racist, but they're all Indian. And to me, it's not a proper 100% job. What Telstra customers are finding.
I think the issue is probably more likely to do with cost cutting and management rather than the guy at the at the front end, and of course they're the guys who cop the brunt of it too. I haven't looked at Telstra in a little while. I'm on Telstra.
Yep. How are you finding it?
Fine. Yep. I recently swapped to NBN, and things are a lot more stable. I don't know that they're any faster, but at least I'm not getting the long lags that I was getting on ADSL.
Yeah.
I think. So yeah, I can't complain. Yep, I think we'll leave it there.
That's just what we're experiencing, because we're in a bit of a rural area. Like the whole street had no internet for 4 days because of the storm damage, and we're on the phone for Telstra for an hour answering the same questions over and over again as well.
Yeah, that's a systemic issue, I think. And I'll stop there because I know you don't like to talk about politics or religion. And I could go on. Yeah, let's move on.
Oh, that's my rant of the telecom company.
Up next, clouds.
No, but no, everything's changing. Like, I wanted to talk to you about Apple. You're a big Apple user, I found. You love Apple versus Microsoft as well.
I like Apple. Yes, I'm not. I've found it most useful for my purposes.
Now, I've got the new iPhone SE. They took out the the headphone jack.
Yeah.
6S. I got 128 gig. Do you feel since Apple took the headphone jack out, it's just not the same anymore? Or how do you feel about it?
I guess semantically it's not the same because it used to have a headphone jack and now it doesn't. I use Bluetooth headphones. I'm quite happy with that. At the time I thought, oh no, my beautiful $5 headphones I bought from Kmart, how am I going to use them? But I still have these.
Wow.
I use in my laptop. So, and I think, my iPod still has an iPhone jack. So, not having it on the phone doesn't really, and I've got Bluetooth.
You remember the old iPods Apple used to have?
Oh, very well, yes.
They were very good at one stage. They had them. They were made to last. Do you still have those models?
I probably do. I haven't used them. I find the phone so useful, and it does everything. It does it. It even makes phone calls on occasion.
Yeah,
I know. Sometimes they take a while to land. It's okay.
Yeah. No, it's technology, like Apple at one stage, I'd say really stood by their product, because remember they had the iPod Touch.
Yes.
And they were made to last, but then they started going into mass production, and it's just they lost the quality over quantity, I think. You got Android who's competing with Apple at the moment. Because Microsoft's they've come a long way against Apple.
And it's good because monopolies tend to not encourage innovation or quality. So to have Android, Google, and Apple competing and holding each other to account, really, and the war to me seems to be over how good the camera is, but also how fast they are, how the size of the screens, yet the portability. I think ultimately the technology benefits. Whether the consumer does, whether society does, that's a whole other argument for a whole other day. But certainly the technology gets better and better and better.
No, I agree. I mean, we got so much on the iPhone now. We got metronomes, we got real books. We can get chord charts. We can download tablature, music theory, oral. Back in your generation, you never had any of that stuff to learn music. You had to learn from the textbooks. You couldn't.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, when I was first starting out, you know, and even, you know, at high school and stuff, I'd read rock and roll encyclopedias and you'd come across group names, some of who were quite big, but there was just no access. They didn't play them on the radio. The record shops didn't sell the stuff, even if you had the money to buy them. You know, and so there was this sort of mystery of, you know, who are Mott the Hoople? David Bowie liked Mott the Hoople. Wow. You know, they must be great. And they were, you know, if any of the guys are watching, hi guys. You know, or Jethro Tull, who became one of my very favorite bands. When I finally found a record shop, which I think was, you know, one of the mainstream ones that had a Jethro Tull greatest hits. And that was 5 years after first hearing about this band. No, that's wrong. Growing up in summer, the radio station, the local radio station, would play for 24 hours a day over the Christmas break. And after midnight, they just put on concept albums and long albums. And that's where I heard for the first time Jethro Tull's Thick as a Brick. Yeah. And I think Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon and Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and things like that. But that was, you know, having to stay up till 1 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning listening. And you'd only hear it once. Now, of course, if I come across a name, I can go to iTunes, Spotify, and if it's not there, then I can go to YouTube. And mostly, and I mean 99.9683% of the time, that's a rough guess. It's there, and I can hear it. There's a sense in which it's a bit sad that things are so easy to get. Like there is a sense of that curiosity, but ultimately, I think it's better. You know, that, you know, I can, you know, who's Galantis, you know, and you hear a song on the radio and, you know, you can then go and hear the song again. You know, again, growing up, you'd heard a song on the radio, and if it wasn't back announced, you'd have to wait for them to play it again. And sometimes they never did. Now I can grab a snatch of the lyrics or even soundhound it, find out who it is, and then explore the artist. I think that's a really good thing. As I said, there is something that's lost, but, you know, I think that the cost is better.
Back in, before Spotify, if you wanted a record and the record store in Sydney or wherever you didn't have it, had to order it from like the United States. Was it a long wait time back then, or how was it like now, 1 month?
I think it was about the same. I think because ships haven't gotten any faster.
Was it all done by ships or airplane?
I think so. I think you could pay, you know, the old biplane would, you know, they'd push up because I'm that old. No. You know, and hopefully it'd make it. You know, once you got past Samoa, there was a good chance. No, but in all seriousness, I don't think the wait times were any different. I don't know. A friend of mine used to import stuff, and I think they took about 4 to 6 weeks, which is what they can now, unless you paid, you know, $80 or $100, and then you could get it on the plane, and it'd take 4 to 5 days.
Yeah.
But of course, if you're buying a $20 record, or actually they were closer to $40, it wasn't worth paying $100 to post it when, you know, you're paying an extra $10 or $12 to ship it, you know, ship it in. So yeah, I don't think the wait times have changed. It's just that we have access to so much more stuff. You can go to Amazon or eBay or Gumtree or, you know, anyone's site and just order this stuff. Some of it does come incredibly quickly, but mostly 4 to 6 weeks was the standard. And of course, today we have access to so much stuff. You forget you've ordered stuff and it comes in and it's like a nice surprise. Oh, I didn't realize I'd ordered this. Then you realize, oh wait, yeah, I did. I don't need it anymore. Oh well.
Send it back.
Send it back. Dear sir.
Back before Amazon happened, if you had a record arrive in the mail and it was scratched, oh god, then you had to post it all the way back.
Oh yeah.
Pay the postage on it. That's frustrating.
Yeah, we didn't know any better. And again, I've never really been into vinyl. I'm old, but I'm not that old. I had LPs as a teenager at home, but when I moved out of home and moved to Sydney, I went straight to CD.
Yep.
And the CD market, and you know, I was in Sydney, so I had access to a lot more stuff. Oh yeah, no, you can't see the full extent of my CD collection, which is way too large.
No, it's CDs I've noticed are dying out, but see, vinyl more people are buying vinyl now instead of CDs. No, that's interesting.
Well, I think it's the expense and the lack of sound quality that's the and the difficulty of storage that's the thing there. No, I'm joking, of course. I think there's a nostalgia thing. But it's not just that, because it's, you know, people who grew up really with things like Napster and what was the thing we had here? The Frog, Blue Frog or something?
I think it was Frogger? Just Napster.
Yeah. But the streaming and the downloading services, you know, people of your age, that was really your first sound system.
Yeah.
You know, you'd download it all onto a computer, and then things like Spotify and eventually Apple, well, actually Apple too, solved the problem by being able to commercialize it.
Yeah, but a lot of well-known musicians are pissed off with Spotify and Apple Music because the royalties aren't enough than they were getting paid previously.
Yeah, I don't know what the solution is, except of course for Spotify and Apple to pay better royalties. The thing is that, and the other thing too is that usually, like, people say, oh, this will kill the music industry. It might kill the industry, but it won't kill music. There'll always be creators. There'll always be people who listen to music. I've said in the past that we've really reverted to the 1950s model, where recordings are essentially local. And now when I mean local, it's your YouTube, or sorry, I'm starting to sound like you get off me grass. It's your local community is maybe your internet community. It might be spread all around the world. Your social medias, your social medias, and you don't make the records are really to promote your touring. Of course, in a pandemic, there's little to no touring.
Yeah.
And we have the added joy, I guess, of merchandise. You know, so particularly hip hop, but Kiss were the real innovators in this, I think. You know, you get Beatles lunch boxes and toys and things, but you can get a Kiss coffin, you can get Kiss alcohol, you can get Kiss everything.
Yeah.
Yes, everything.
Gene, I saw Gene Simmons that talking about that once on a show.
I've never tried them. But and of course, I'm guessing there's a Kiss fragrance.
Yeah.
And on top of the obvious stuff, T-shirts and tour jackets and programs, and your hip hop guys all have fragrances. They all have a clothing line, not just T-shirts with their name and face on it, but clothes. So I think we have kind of reverted to a 1950s model where your touring is the money making, your recording is your promotion, and then if you can sell anything extra, that's fantastic because you can sell a lot more. And things like
with touring, right? I've never toured. Have you toured?
No, not overly. No.
How do bands make money? Because it costs a lot of money to tour.
That's where good management is vital. Now you can manage yourself, of course, if you have those skills. The band Wolfpack, who are a terrific band, played Madison Square Garden without an agency or a recording deal.
Jesus.
They did, they weren't the first, but there's been no more than 2 or 3. And I don't know who the others are, I think. But that was through the hard work of making sure they built their internet fandom, that they used that effectively. If you don't have those skills, and I venture to suggest most musicians don't.
No, it's hard.
Learning this stuff takes away from playing.
Yeah.
And as musicians, we want to play. As music professionals, though, we need to remember that the business side is important. So if you can get a good manager who can keep costs down and keep income up, you can make a decent living touring. Now, it's a hard life. It takes you away from your home, your families, your friends. One of the few touring experiences I had a gig in Maitland on Australia Day 1988, one of my first gigs. All the action was happening in the city, and all my friends got on a yacht, because we happened to know someone with a yacht, and we're on the harbour for this huge day. I was playing a gig at Maitland Jail, but that's the sacrifice you make, You miss weddings, 21sts, engagement parties, christenings, 30th, 40th, 50th, 60th, 70s, anniversary parties. You miss most of those, and if you're not prepared to miss those, and there's a good argument that you shouldn't miss those. You're probably going to struggle in the music environment of today, unless you can get 8 million hits on your YouTube channel. I think YouTube pays, is it 1/8 of a cent or 3/4 of a cent?
Yeah,
I think it's 3/4 of a cent per play. So if you can get 4 million YouTube, you might get $1 million, something like that.
Guess how much my first royalty paycheck was? $3.
$3. Well, don't spend it all in the one shop.
But no, that was good.
Put that away. There's some good return on that.
Yeah. No, that was my first ever paycheck from royalties.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, no.
1 year on streaming services as well. But I've found my experience, I've had to pay to get on the Billboard charts as well. And there's no guarantee that you'll get hits.
Oh, you had to join the RIAA or something, did you?
Yeah.
Or
some you can as an added cost from your distributor. So I thought I'll try it. So
yeah.
No, it takes time.
It takes time. It takes perseverance. It's hard. It will break you over and over and over again. I argue, and this is not to discourage people, but it's to try and encourage people. If you don't have to do it, you probably shouldn't be looking at it full time. If you think, oh, I'd be happy being an accountant or being a school teacher, and I'm not disparaging any of those jobs at all. If you don't have to do it, you probably won't do it. And the other thing is attributed to Henry Ford: whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're probably right. And I think if you're looking at a career in music, it's one of the hardest. It's not as hard as acting, because there's a few more avenues in music than acting, in that, it's easier to get into teaching for music. It's very hard to become an acting teacher. There's a few things you can do. And the other thing too is that only a very, very few become wealthy from it. Only a very, very few become wildly successful. But you can maintain a reasonable standard of living. And there's a sense too, and my older friends are going to yell at me for this, but in that, always take advice from older players, but also understand that the market or the industry that they started in is vastly different to the industry that you're starting in. And so, a lot of people of, say over 40 struggle to understand how anyone makes a living today and how you could start out today. But when they were starting out, people who were 40 were saying, I could never make it in today's industry. And that goes back to, probably the medieval times.
I wanted to elaborate on that with my experience with Shields Productions and entrepreneurship. I never had intentions to be an entrepreneur, never was interested. And I'd go to job interviews, David, and the boss would say, why aren't you doing something with music? I'd be just stunned. So I got so many knockbacks from IT jobs, and I just thought, oh, bugger it. The pandemic hit, just do it.
Yeah, and to be fair, it's a bit counterintuitive to start a career which requires, in many ways, a lot of people in an enclosed area to appreciate it in a pandemic. But then if you can make it now, when times are good again, you'll do really well, hopefully.
I have.
Obviously, I can't promise because there's a whole range of factors. A lot of very talented people go nowhere, and a lot of moderately talented people do very well. It's hard work, it's luck, it's having the right balance of skills. You might be the best guitar player since Eddie Van Halen, but if you can't translate that into something someone wants to sell, you won't make it. Nobody's interested in your experimental approach unless you can sell it.
Yeah, that's what pisses me off about the whole marketing side as an entrepreneur, because in the beginning you don't have the funds to be able to hire a marketing person, and you're doing it all yourself. all your marketing, your bookkeeping, your social media.
Yeah. It's hard. And but that's true of any, if you start at a bakery, you know, you're sourcing your own flour, you're installing your own ovens, you're working out your own recipes, you're promoting your own business till you start to get a bit of traction, and then you can start to hire people. The other thing too is that often, not always, but often the right people turn up just when you need them. Actually, always the right people turn up just when you need them. And it's sometimes it's a matter of working out, is this the right person or is this a con artist? You know, because when you start to get successful too, you get all types of people who want to exploit you. Sometimes, you know, they want you to play for free or do stuff for free, and it's no problem. Sometimes they want to dig into the huge piles of cash that they think you have, you know. Sometimes it's worse than that.
Look, I don't mind giving a free service for charity. I gave one of my tracks to Live Is to Die because I'm a member of the New South Wales Rural Fire Service.
Yep.
Volunteer. So they reached out to me. They said, "Oh, can we get some music from you?" I said, "Yes. If you reference it, I got a letter of endorsement off the RFS as well. But I'm happy to give a free service to charity."
Sure. Yeah. And, you know, you should, where possible, you know, and happy to help students with their old students or younger people with their stuff, if it's one appropriate, two, I can do it, and three is, those are the main two really. I think where we fall down often is we say yes to the wrong things and no, we say yes to the wrong things and no to the wrong things, and that's just a trick you have to learn, you know, what to say yes and no to. Yes, you know, the RFS is obviously a great charity, and it's no skin if you'll know one song. You've written dozens of songs, yes? Yeah. So, you know, one song, and in 10 years' time when it's a massive hit, you can sue them and get it back. That's not a problem.
Oh, David. Now, it's on my YouTube channel, my IGTV as well.
Yep.
No, it was really good to help out with the RFS.
Yeah.
Really good. Now, I wanted to know, have you ever run your own business before?
Oh, yes. More as a consultant.
What's been your greatest moments and your most lowest of moments as a businessman?
Probably, greatest moment as a businessman.
Yeah, like income wise, were you able to earn a living, or?
Yes, I was able to earn a living.
Or have you been broke as well?
Have I? Am I? Is really yes. I'm trying to think. I tend to think in terms of success more in terms of what did I get done rather than what did I earn. Now everybody's thinking he hasn't done anything. Probably my greatest moment as a businessman was probably, it would have been to do with either, you know, getting a good band together and playing a great gig, and there've been a lot of those. I've been very fortunate in some of the musicians I've known. Certainly, getting a report or an article published somewhere where people could read it, or a book even, usually on topics we're not allowed to talk on here.
Except Telstra.
except Telstra. And the other thing too, I'm struggling because usually when I've done something, it's done, and I like to move forward. You can, for me anyway, you can hold yourself back looking in the past. The past is done, and I say this as a historian. So, those of you who are into paradox might like to write this down. This is a good one. I think if I look back at, my relatively great achievements, I don't want to be complacent and not keep on going to achievement. So, yeah, but those of you who are savvy with the Google can probably Google my name and see some of the stuff I've done. And I'll let, and I'll leave it there.
No, the reason why I say this because there was Walt Disney. He filed bankruptcy I think it was 300 times. He filed bankruptcy.
Bankruptcy in the United States is a slightly different thing too.
Is it?
Yeah, you can. Gibson Guitars has just gone into what's called Chapter 11 bankruptcy.
Yeah,
and its idea is actually, I think, a good one. It allows a business that should be viable to continue to trade, rather than to go broke and lose all those jobs. So there are some strict conditions. You got to restructure, and it's not supposed to spend money on things that aren't good business. But it means that you can trade your way out of insolvency and back into a position where you're good. Somebody like Donald Trump has used this to avoid paying tax.
Oh, yeah.
And to avoid paying bills, and to, get himself out of suddenly not profitable developments. It's not always the sign of sign of failure as such. Sometimes it's a strategy that American businesses use to reduce their costs. And I don't know how you fix that, because one, I'm not an American businessman. And two, I think if you look at the way that somebody like Trump used it to his advantage, you then lose genuine cases who, anyway, we'll leave it there.
Because Walt Disney, he created Disneyland.
That's correct.
And he did fall 300 times as an entrepreneur. I was watching a TED talk with an entrepreneur, an Indian. He filed bankruptcy 3 times, and he didn't have money to pay the electricity bill.
Yep.
Has that ever happened to you as a businessman? Have you been broke, or have you?
No, I've always been able to maintain just enough cash flow.
That's really good.
Yeah. Success is a relative thing. I'm not driving around in a Lamborghini, and I know, by first name most of the phone bill and electricity company and water companies are debt collection agencies by name. Oh, hi Jane, how you going? How are the kids? Great. Yep. You need extra time to pay your bill. Thanks. See you in 3 months. But yeah, no, we've been lucky.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
Because I've known some businessmen, even entrepreneurs, who didn't have money to go to a restaurant.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. For sure, it's if without getting too metaphysical, generally the universe will provide you with what you need if you're grateful enough. And you know, sometimes you don't need to go to a restaurant. Sometimes you don't need to have that extra luxury. You know, having the roof over your head, having friends and family who like you, having you know, having enough money to eat, to keep shelter can be enough. You know, you know, we're lucky that we live in circumstances that, you know, we're not homeless yet. We're not unwell, you know, and I'm also not saying that, you know, those people who maybe aren't as fortunate as we are any less worthy or have deserved this necessarily. You know, there are some people who've just had incredibly bad luck. And all we can do is be grateful that it's not us, and do what we can to help. You know,
look at Marshall Mathers. Eminem grew up in Detroit.
Yep.
Has Detroit always had poverty?
Oh, everywhere has poverty. Detroit got hit very hard after in the 90s. Detroit got hit really hard because the car industry in the States collapsed. But big industrial towns tend to have poverty because people move there because there's the hope of a job with one of the factories. But every major city has always had poverty.
Wow, even Sydney.
Yes, one of the jobs I did in the past was working for the Clemente or the Caritas the education, which was through Catholic Uni, and we would basically, I taught Australian politics to homeless people in the hope that it would break the. I wasn't the only one. There was a guy who taught English, and there was a guy who taught philosophy, and I forget what the other subject was. Maybe it was a science. And if they handed in the assignments and passed the assignments, they got credit points to be able to enter university and break that cycle.
Wow.
But yeah, Sydney has a lot of homelessness. Women, middle-aged and older women are the biggest cadre of homeless. And yes, it's a big problem that nobody seems willing to deal with except by making it illegal somehow, banning homeless people from parts of the city where certain rich people don't want to look at them, and an uncoordinated attempt at 200, I think, services, both government and non-government, trying to help this. It's a big problem. And all of us are, you know, one bad month away from it, you know. We have to judge less and care more, really.
No, I think you're right. Look, when I was in Los Angeles, I was shocked by, there was so much homeless people everywhere in the middle of, I stayed around the Kawada Hotel. It's near the, you know, the arena.
Right.
Fucking hell, David. It was like, Jesus Christ. It was very uncomfortable for me because I've never seen it before.
It's, and in a country like the United States or in a country like Australia, this shouldn't be an issue. There are no votes in it, of course. Oops, went into politics. And the other thing too is that people are when you're comfortable, it's very hard to you often keeping your own comfort is enough work. And so I think we need to. There's a whole lot of things we need to address. Yeah, I'll stop there. Otherwise, I'll start ranting, and YouTube will say 6 hours is too long. You can't put that up. And another thing.
No, look. Unfortunately, it's life. Have you been to Hollywood?
Many years ago, when I was a kid.
Oh, David, my God! Oh, it was disgusting.
Yeah.
Why is such a well-known historical place? It's just it's like a dump. Hollywood.
It's really because it's the great American promise, and in some ways the great American delivery. For every Robert Downey Jr. There are 10,000 wannabe Robert Downey Jr.'s. This is not to disparage. He's just the biggest star at the moment, or one of the biggest stars. For every Leonardo DiCaprio or every Margot Robbie, they're all terrific actors, and as far as I can tell, they're all terrific people. I'm just saying that they've had massive success, or will have massive success. But there's a lot of people who worked very hard, but just never got the breaks.
Yeah,
have the talent, and then mental illness is a problem for this. It's one of those things that people are very uncomfortable with. It's got a huge stigma. Addiction is a problem, and you can be addicted to many things. And it's not, it's easy to say it's a moral failing, but it's not really. I think it leads to moral failings because the addiction is a disease that consumes. And so you make choices that perhaps you mightn't. And I speak as someone who's never had any personal experience of this stuff. So if anybody says, no, David, you're absolutely wrong, and you've been in that position, you're more than welcome to comment on the YouTube or email Steve. I'll ignore it because I'm right. No. But just through my observations, it's a system that's very top heavy in terms of how it distributes its wealth, but very bottom heavy in how it distributes its misfortune. Nearly all of those homeless people, I imagine, would think that they're a big star if they just got the break, even when they're addicted to something or severely mentally or even mentally ill. Cities tend to have slightly better caring facilities as well, which is why people gravitate to cities.
I went through, you got Beverly Hills.
Yep.
You got Beverly Hills, these $1 million mansions, and then just down the road, I saw this, a homeless person eating out of a garbage bin.
Yeah, which was probably the first meal he'd had that day.
Yeah.
And this is where, I was saying earlier that if you show enough gratitude, the universe can reward you. That's not even a guarantee, Yeah, we live in a very cruel and capricious universe. And I'm not going to argue against people's personal spiritual or structural beliefs here. But the answer isn't as simple as we all hold hands and sing Kumbaya and it'll all be all right. That doesn't hurt, but it doesn't help as much as we'd like it to as well, I think.
But see, what's weird, you got San Francisco where it's you got all the tech companies. They've got an even worse homeless problem than Los Angeles for some reason.
Yeah, I haven't looked at the various sociological and economic factors behind, and some of it will be to do with law enforcement. Some of it will be to do with San Francisco was a major port, and so it always tended to attract people going away or coming in.
Yeah,
so that would be part of it.
It did get hit by an earthquake. San Francisco did.
Oh yes.
And it's I think it'd be the next city or state of America that if a tsunami was to happen, it would go to San Francisco.
Apparently so, yes.
Now, the city I've heard is quite polluted. It's got a lot of, I think it's smog in the air.
Yep.
It's. I've heard from tourists that it's not a very clean city to visit.
I was in San Francisco when I was 15. My memory of it was a beautiful city.
Yep.
But it was a different place then. So, and I haven't. One day I'll get back. I mean, obviously, there's no travel in a pandemic.
No.
And there's a song title for you.
I've got a song called Pandemic.
Oh, there you go. But yeah, my memories of San Francisco is that it was a beautiful, very much reminded me of Sydney in many ways.
A lot's changed because I went to LA in 2018. I went there as a kid, and when I was a kid, it looked much more better. But then, I don't know, because of the global financial crisis, I think America's been hit with a lot of poverty. Worse.
Oh yeah.
Worse than we did.
Yeah. Australia managed the GFC a lot better than the United States did. The United States handled it fairly well, actually. I've just been reading President Obama's memoirs where he goes through some of the stuff he did. And he was hampered by forces who didn't want him to do as much as he maybe should have. And he admits that. But he also says he probably wouldn't have done anything differently had he been given the choice, because, you've got to balance all this stuff. Whereas Australia went hard and went early and basically chased it off, one of only 3 countries of the world to not feel any effect.
Well, there was a composer named George Friedrich Handel who lived in the South Sea bubble, which was like a GFC. That's why I brought it up. For the audience, what's a GFC and how does it start and finish a global financial crisis?
Well, you've just answered what a GFC is, a global financial crisis. How do they start? they start with the removal of money from certain sectors. Yep. And that's all kinds of way. Sometimes it's a crash in the property market. Yep. Sometimes it's a crash in the stock market, and businesses have less cash flow to be able to pay people.
Yep.
So they lay people off. So people have no jobs, so they have less money to spend, which leads back into businesses making money, because if no one's spending money, businesses aren't getting it. There are a whole range of reasons. Sometimes commodity prices crash or go up. You know, in the 70s, the petrol price went up because the oil producing nation said, we're going to charge what we think is a fair price for petrol now, and jack the prices up 30 or 40%. The 2008 one was driven by a housing bubble, banks lending to what you might call subprime lenders, who then couldn't pay back their mortgages. This one will be probably in Australia driven by poor government spending, and an over-reliance on private credit. If it happens, it may not happen. We all hope it doesn't. Yeah. So it's a whole range of things.
It's quite scary because when we had the 2020 coronavirus pandemic, there were people who had mortgages on their houses and had to take a year off. Now, banks are greedy. They want their money, and if you don't pay, well, what do? They take the house.
The banks have been fairly good so far in allowing people to change their repayment rates, in allowing people to have time off from paying. Now they're adding this all to the end of the mortgage, of course. You'll pay that 3, 6, 12 months back. Instead of being free in a mortgage in 25 years, it might take you 27 or 28 years. Now, to be fair, that's probably not a bad payoff, provided things get better. I wonder how much longer people are going to be. The pandemic's not over yet. I think we've probably got another 6 to 12 months of it before things, depending on the vaccine, the vaccine will take at least 6 months to settle in, provided it works.
Hope so.
The one, yeah. And it will, and then things, hopefully for our industry, the gigs will start coming back. The opportunities will start coming back. And that's true for all industries, I think we shouldn't start being too hopeful until March being fairly optimistic, but more realistically optimistic June or July. Well, that's flu season. Maybe even August, September to be what's the word I'm after? To be a bit more on the pessimistic side. It depends on how quickly they can roll out the vaccine, how effective it is. The one they're rolling out is only 60% effective, apparently.
Is it the AstraZeneca or the Pfizer we're going to get in Australia?
There's some Pfizer, but it's mostly AstraZeneca. And I'll be fair here too. Some vaccine is probably better than none. And some of your listeners may say, David, there's no virus and the vaccine's a waste of time. And maybe that's true too. I think there is a virus. I've seen the evidence of it. I don't, and again, we've been lucky in Australia in that our figures have been relatively low. But 4,000 deaths a day in the United States, 4,000 cases a day in Britain. That might not be the right number.
Italy was hit the worst at the beginning.
Italy was just devastated.
Interviewing a guest on Saturday who's from Vienna. Third lockdown.
Yep.
Full lockdown in Vienna.
Yep.
Ireland has gone into lockdown as well.
Yep. Ireland's been a basket case. They opened up for Christmas against all medical advice, and they're paying for it now.
Singapore went into a second lockdown. Melbourne as well.
Singapore is one of the best countries in the world for it. South Korea, which went into a big lockdown. Melbourne, as you said.
Scary stuff. Well, I wanted to say about banks in the old days, if you didn't make any of your mortgage payments, they used to just take it within 3 months.
Yeah. I don't think they want the publicity. Do you know what I mean? And they're making big profits. And while they can carry you, provided you can show cause that you'll be able to get back at some point in the relatively foreseeable future, hopefully they don't want the foreclosures, because they then have to offload that property, and if no one's buying, the bank becomes filled with empty houses that don't actually help their bottom line at all. So, but we'll see.
You see, the situation is, if you had to sell your house to pay back the bank, do you still have a debt after that they're going to chase you for it or not, or do they let you
go? If they sell the house, I think that clears your debts. Yeah. I think. Yeah.
That's weird.
If you've got mortgage insurance, the insurance company covers it for you, then chases you for the debt, and you still lose your house.
And that's when people file bankruptcy.
Yeah.
Which is sad. No, and also too, I think there was some famous musicians who got hit with a huge IRS tax bill because they didn't pay their taxes.
Yes.
In America. Now, America, with the IRS, if you don't pay your tax, they repossess things from you. Take stuff away.
Yes. They will cover the debt as much as they can.
And do you still owe money to the debt, or once they've sold the debt, is that it?
No, once the debt's paid off, that's it. We're all friends again until the next time.
Not with the bank. Unfortunately, they're not the banks.
No, well, all they want is their money, and once they've got that, and it means that, you won't be able to borrow again for till maybe ever. It's a problematic it's a problematic system.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'll leave it there, because we will then get into our banned topics.
No, it's very interesting that you talk about this as a musician, because there have been musicians get in trouble.
Oh yeah. For our listeners, I'm also a historian and political scientist, so I have this type of knowledge, which may be wrong, but I have it anyway.
No, that's very good. And okay, like going back to touring, right?
Yep.
When you get a tour manager, do they look after all your taxes for you or your finances?
No, not necessarily. You probably should get an accountant to do that. And an entertainment industry accountant too.
Yeah.
Because the laws are the rules anyway are a little bit different. So yeah, ultimately your dream would be to have a tour manager, an accountant, a publicity person manager type thing. And sometimes they can be the same person. There are other things you need, but music techs and things like that. But ultimately, you should, I think the less you have to do the grind work on stuff that's not your craft, the better it is. Now, having said that, if you can do it all yourself, that's better. And if you can do it yourself, and you don't want to lose control of what you're doing, you'll still have to do some of the grind work of going over the books with the accountant, looking at all the bookings and the tour schedules and the little fires that come up in touring, talking to your stage manager about the technical issues and live performances, otherwise, because that's where, if you start to lose control of that, that's where you start to get ripped off. That's where you start to compromise on things that you shouldn't compromise on. There's always compromises you have to make there, but some things you shouldn't compromise on. The integrity of your brand. You should never compromise on that. The quality of your work, you should never compromise on that. You might compromise on, well, this was a 7-minute song. Well, we should do it as a 4-minute song. But you're cutting out the best 3 minutes. Is it though? And you compromise on that.
Yeah.
But as long as you are happy with the product you are selling, and you are selling it in an honest and integral way, that should be right. You're doing well. You've succeeded, basically. And then if you get money from that, even better. And if you can sustain it for, a period of time, even better again.
David Lewis, is a fantastic show with you today, back on the podcast. Where can people find you on your social media?
You'll find me on Instagram at I think dlu2192 is my Instagram page. So I look forward to mostly pictures of my cats. So looking forward to seeing you there. But any major announcements I'll put there as well. So I'll look forward to that.